Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted in the AITAH subreddit about 4 months ago. The post is titled AITAH for wanting to finish. So I was raised in a religious household. I'm no longer religious, but because of this, sex was kind of a taboo situation, and that included masturbation. I admit I tried a few times as a teen, but nothing came of it. I met my husband after leaving home, and we waited for marriage to have sex. When we did start having sex, my husband always told me he loved the way I climaxed on him. I didn't feel much different, so I asked him about it, and he said I would squeeze harder down there when it happened. I told him I didn't notice it much, and he told me that everyone hyped it up to be more than it actually was, and that I was in fact maxing. I went to my obstetrician recently for other issues and he noticed some sensitivity I had down there. He started asking me about it affecting my sex life, and I explained what my husband told me and how I had not noticed it much. He was quiet for a minute, then asked me questions about if I masturbated, and I told him how I tried, but it never went anywhere for me. He left the room and a female nurse came in to talk to me. She started explaining things about nerves in the vagina and how female climaxes usually work. She even told me a few things to go home and try to see if I was able to. She suggested I give it a shot, and if it doesn't work, report it to my obstetrician so we can make sure all my nerves are functioning properly and there are no underlying issues we need to know about. I was hesitant, but later in the week my husband had to work late, and I used that time to try some stuff out. It worked, and I had my first real climax. I admit I was so excited I did it a few more times to be sure I wasn't just making it up in my head. It was simple and easy too. All I needed was a rub in the right spot, basically. I waited until the next time my husband asked for to show him, and he asked me where I learned this. I explained my doctor visit and everything, and he got angry. He said I already climaxed during sex, even though I don't feel it, and that I should be happy with that. I told him that it wasn't difficult to do this one extra thing during sex, and I didn't see the problem because we both climaxed in the end. He said he didn't want to be bothered with it and that if I was going to insist, we shouldn't have sex anymore. I agreed and told him we would not until he came to his senses and realized this is not a difficult ask. He said if we're not having sex anymore, we should just divorce so he can find someone else. I told him good luck because with a dead sex life, failed 10-year marriage, and 2 kids baggage, he won't have many options. Am I the asshole for any of this? Advice, please? Edit. Despite some beliefs, yes, this is a real post. There are lots of comments and I'm trying my best to work through them. Thank you all for being so supportive so far. My husband and I aren't currently speaking. However, he did come into the kitchen earlier and said he wasn't serious about the divorce yet. User Nightwish said, I think your husband's childish reaction comes from the realization that he never made you climax. It's very good you finally managed to ring your bell. To this comment, User Heavy Recipe said, do you really think he thought he was pretty good and this just hit his ego? Sounds like he probably never made his previous wife climax either then. User Turmeric Ping said, you're not the asshole. And your husband knew damn well you weren't having climaxes. All this stuff about a climax not being noticed and being just you squeezing a bit. Seriously? He just wanted to fool you that this was all the life you could hope for. User T-Rex said, not the asshole. Your husband is lazy and selfish. Your pleasure is just as important as his. And can I just say, send that doctor's office flowers. What a wonderful, caring, and understanding staff. To this comment, OP said, I plan to thank them on my next visit. I do feel a bit embarrassed that they had to tell me what to do to have a climax. I hope it doesn't show too much when I go again. Update. So I finally sat my husband down to talk and he wasn't happy about it. He kept saying he didn't want to do it, nor did he want to witness me doing it to myself. I kept asking why he had a problem with it, and finally he exploded. He explained to me in detail what his now deceased grandmother used to do to him every time he spent the night with her. It was awful and wrong, and my poor husband hated it. He explained that he never told because his grandmother said she would blame him and say he assaulted her and have him sent to military school. He said because of her, he doesn't find doing those things sexy or fun, but disgusting. After he told me, we were both silent for a while. He mentioned that I was the only one he had told before. I suggested therapy, and he surprisingly agreed. He said if all goes well, he will one day be able to help me in the bedroom. We agreed to no sex until he is comfortable enough to participate with me. Masturbation is allowed, but in private for now. He started therapy and seems more relaxed and happier. The life-changing part for me is the different perspective I have of the situation now. Initially, I thought he was being an awful husband. Now I know most of it is trauma-based. That's my update for now. If interested, I may update again on my profile once we get back in the bedroom. Edit, husband is not only aware of this post, but pre-approved what I said here himself. I told him about my original post and showed him and promised not to update if that's what he wanted. After his first therapy session, he said to go ahead and update it, and so I wrote this and showed him ahead of posting. He has since been to therapy again. This next post was made in the same subreddit by a throwaway account. The post is titled AITAH for hating my wife's creepy hobby project. Okay, this sounds insane, but I swear my wife is totally normal otherwise, which makes this so strange to me. For context, we're both in our late 30s and live in a pretty typical suburban neighborhood where we all know each other. My wife has always loved trashy movies and shows about infidelities, and she eats up true crime about spouses killing their cheating partners too. She just says something about it makes her morbidly fascinated in her words. Well, a couple of months back, we had a scandal in our neighborhood where a married couple divorced because the husband cheated. No, there wasn't a murder or anything like that, but she became obsessed with learning every detail from every neighbor. No matter the occasion, be it a baby shower or cookout, she would bring it up hoping that there would be any new information. A month later is when I stumbled on the board in her home office. I was doing some cleaning and I found a massive bulletin board facing away, leaned up against the wall. Curiosity got the better of me, and I turned it around to find a literal conspiracy board of all our neighbors' pictures with lines of yarn connecting each other like the Pepe Sylvia meme. I was totally confused and asked what this was, and she told me it was a hobby she had started recently where she would track rumors or likely candidates for cheating on the board. The yarn represented who was possibly cheating with whom. She had clearly gotten all the images on Facebook or some social media and printed them out, and even had a few sticky notes with details. I told her this was creepy and insane, and she said maybe if I was doing it as a man, but she is just having harmless fun as a hobby, and she wouldn't be crazy and try to oust anyone based on rumors. She just likes feeling like a detective. She told me to view it like a creative art piece. I was still super weirded out, but let it go, or tried. I thought about it a lot. Well, every now and then I admit to checking the board when cleaning, but just a couple of days ago I looked to see that now I was on the board with a yarn attached to a neighbor's wife I am casual friends with. I asked her why she would add me if she thought I was cheating, and she said that was a different yarn color for potential matches for cheating. She said if it makes me feel better, she was planning on adding herself to the board soon. Well, I got pissed and kind of lost my temper about it. I told her to get rid of the board or our marriage will be in trouble. Things have been super rocky since. Sorry for the long post, I am starting to feel bad and it hit me more than usual this morning. Should I apologize to her? And before you ask, no, I don't suspect her of cheating. Honestly, I wish she was because it would at least make more sense than this. Am I the asshole? A deleted user said, I really couldn't see it getting weirder until she mentioned adding herself to the board. This is a strange game your wife's playing, and it seems like an unhealthy obsession with infidelity. To this comment, user Grundlestorm said, yeah, the thing is, most of us like to be involved in things and want some amount of excitement. That's understandable. If I suddenly had a chance to go on some kind of exploration trip or stumble into some grand conspiracy, I would absolutely be ready to grab a backpack and go. But this is already a problem in its own right, and she really needs to just get into some mystery novels or something. I can't help but feel like eventually just comparing who seems to talk to who a bit more at the grocery store isn't going to be enough. This story she's crafting, this infidelity fanfic she's fixating on, is gonna need some big reveals, some twists, and if she is putting herself in a position to make them happen and clearly starting to consider who she would or could be involved with. But either way, you don't feed the problematic thoughts or desires. That just gives them power and makes them more interesting and appealing. This isn't a fun mystery. This was one of their neighbors' lives being ruined over their spouse being a pathetic child. And she is obsessing over, romanticizing it, and even wanting to include herself and her husband in it. User Tall Negotiations said, not the asshole. Obsession is not healthy and isn't a hobby. She's borderline stalking people because of some weird obsession with the concept of infidelity. She needs therapy. I wouldn't have stayed for a second if my husband did this creepy stuff. Update. Firstly, appreciate all of the concern and not the asshole responses. It gave me the courage to approach her and tell her that while I may have overreacted by threatening our marriage, I think it is a creepy thing to do. She apologized and said she would get rid of the board. I thought we were good. Our happily married next door neighbor finds a woman's bra under the bed that does not belong to her. It doesn't take long for the whole neighborhood to find out. Well, my wife is giddy, like jumping up and down for joy. She shows me the board, and of course the husband was marked with yarn, meaning he was likely to cheat. She told me the board was accurate after all, and maybe she should keep her hobby around. I was definitely suspicious, so I looked at the board again later. It looked different from the last time I saw it before the latest scandal. Instead of the yarn connecting to another neighbor, the cheating husband's yarn connected to a post-it with a question mark. Firstly, it was the only question mark there, and I swore it wasn't there last time I saw the board. So either she changed it after the cheating to prove a point, or slightly before it happened, which made me even more suspicious either way. Now I felt like I was the detective and I was going crazy. I went over to the cheating husbands to ask a few questions. The wife was staying at her parents', so it was just the two of us. I asked him if he actually did it, and he said no, he would never. Then I asked if my wife had been over recently. He said one day while I was at work, his wife asked her to water a plant they had while they were both away and told her where the key was, so yes. I immediately raised an eyebrow. I asked if he still had the bra, and he was getting nervous and told me not to get the wrong idea. I said, "Don't worry." He still had the bra, and I looked at it. It was my wife's, but one I knew she almost never wore because it was from a lingerie set I bought her one Christmas she said was uncomfortable. I told my neighbor I needed to talk to my wife and ran out, but I told him not to worry. I approached her with the bra and asked her what was going on. She played stupid, but I told her to cut the nonsense. I asked if she had either cheated on me with him or planted it there. Either way, she was in trouble. She confessed to planting the bra and said it was to make me admit her hobby was valid or something. I flipped on her. I said this was worse than her cheating on me because instead of ruining just our marriage, she ruined our neighbors and ours. I demanded she call the wife and admit to everything, even sending pictures of the board. I even showed the Reddit post, which actually helped convince her my wife had planted it rather than cheated with her husband. Well, they made up, but now I have no idea what to do. I am barely speaking to my wife, and it is only a matter of time before the entire neighborhood figures this out. I seriously need advice. Final update. After what had happened previously, I did not speak to my wife for a while. I tried to stay working or out of the house as often as I could. Well, a few weeks passed, and time made it seem like less and less of a big deal. Finally, my wife offered to take me out to a very nice dinner to make things up to me. She told me everything was behind her, and while I was avoiding her, she had actually started online therapy to get help, and realized now what she did was wrong. I really believed her, and we had a great night. One thing led to another that night. It took about 2 days after that for her to get a pregnancy test, and she texted me the positive result. Yeah, I know some of you already think I'm an idiot, but it had been a rough year, and this made me really happy. I started getting very excited. We started talking about turning my home office into a baby room, looking up ways to prepare, booking appointments, planning a shower, etc. A really fun but whirlwind week. Unfortunately, she told me the first ultrasound was at a time I had to be at work and she would have to go alone. It really bummed me out, and I asked her to reschedule, but she said it was the only availability. Well, that next week she went and I waited for an update or pictures or anything. Nothing. She came home and was super quiet, and I flipped out and got super worried that the worst had happened. I told her I understood she was probably in a lot of pain about something, but she had to tell me. She finally admitted no, it wasn't a miscarriage, but she was actually pregnant for longer than she thought. Longer than the last time we did it. She actually got pregnant during the time I was avoiding her. Obviously, I was so mad and upset, and I couldn't understand why she would do this to me, but then I realized all the signs were there for so long, and all the comments telling me she was probably cheating were right. But I tried to keep a clear head for at least a second because I really love my wife and I couldn't believe it. I asked her who it could have been, and she actually said she didn't know. She said she hadn't done it with anyone during the time I was avoiding her. She swore it and also didn't know what this meant. I thought about it and realized if she was really pregnant for that long, her tummy should be showing, and it wasn't. I decided to call the place and ask them to confirm what they said. My wife told me it would be a waste of time, and she promised she heard them clearly, so I didn't do it that night. but I couldn't sleep that night without hearing it from the doctors myself. I called the clinic she told me she went to the day before in the morning and asked them to confirm the results. They told me something worse than I expected. She had no visit, she was never there. I didn't understand that at all. Before I talked to my wife again, I did what I should have done in the first place and reverse image searched the pregnancy test image. Yeah, it was on Google from a random Facebook post. I was again really mad at my wife and couldn't believe she would put me through all this. I confronted her about the picture and that I called the place and there was no appointment. I told her she had a pattern of lying and this was probably the end of our relationship, but she responded in a way I didn't expect. She burst into tears and went manic, but then said that she really had cheated on me and really was pregnant and that I had made this up in my head because I couldn't face what she did to me. She said she felt like the devil and started sobbing and literally screaming at the top of her lungs. She locked herself in the bathroom and told me she was going to kill herself over what she did to me. I couldn't get the door open and freaked out. I called the police and they broke the door down. She was not hurt, but she was really out of it. They took her to get a mental evaluation and she told them everything there. She even started mixing in stuff about the board and how she knew everyone around her was a cheater, so she had done the same because she was in an evil place. She promised them she was pregnant, but she didn't know who the father was. They tested her while in custody and no pregnancy at all. They told me she was likely suffering from a form of schizophrenia and actually genuinely believed what she was saying and likely always had to some level, but it seemed to be getting worse. They said she had a symptom called self-accusation and needed help. Well, I got her in a facility last week and she is safe. They are making a little progress. I do not think she thinks she is pregnant anymore. I have visited a few times, but she is very withdrawn with me and says she feels too guilty to look me in the eye. I think there was definitely meddling at certain parts like planting evidence, but now I just feel terrible I did not get her the help she needed when all the real signs were there. I hope her medication starts to help and she can be normal again. And yeah, the neighborhood gossip is having a field day with all this. Anyway, thanks for listening. I hope this is my last update. Thanks for all the help. Edit. My wife has been to the clinic before and I am an authorized contact. I can ask about her appointments. Also, local area so I know the front desk lady. She was as confused as I was when she saw there were no appointments scheduled and no record of her going. Why don't all you losers shove a fork up your backside and twist it? Also, never responding to comments and honestly debating adding this edit. Go away kindly or unkindly. This final post was made in the relationship subreddit by a throwaway account. The post is titled, "My husband intends to ask me to open the marriage. How do I tell him I have no intention of letting him near me or my future baby? Throwaway because my husband knows my Reddit handle. I've also changed names just to diminish the chances of him finding me. He's not abusive, but I have no intentions of letting him find out what I intend to do before I do it. I guess I'm just looking for advice on what to do." Victor and I met 5 years ago, and we've been married for almost 3. When we were dating, I told him that under no circumstances would I condone cheating. If he cheated and I found out about it, that's it. I'd cut off all contact and he'd never see or hear from me again. If we were married or have kids, we'd only go through our lawyers. He told me he was glad I had standards and the past 5 years were great, not perfect. But I believed we were happy. We decided to try for a baby last year. My due date is in 16 weeks. I was over the moon happy and I believed he was too. He told me when we were dating that he didn't care if we had only boys, but he always wanted to have at least one little girl for him to pamper and spoil. When we learned the baby was a girl, he cried and told me I was the best wife in the world. That was until last weekend. Victor went out to get groceries but left his phone in our room by accident. I decided to take it down to the kitchen so he wouldn't be scrambling looking for it when he got home. As I was walking to the kitchen, a text message popped up. It was from his work wife, Alicia. It said, "So the plan's on?" I don't know why, but something about this made me suspicious. Victor is the type of man who uses the same passcode for everything, so I was able to access his phone. Well, I checked his messages and I learned that he intended to ask me to open the relationship so he and Alicia can start going out. I've never met an open relationship that's ever worked out, and a number of people I've talked to have told me that an open relationship is usually because someone is already cheating and wants to continue guilt-free or has someone in the wings. And it's clear that if he and Alicia aren't sleeping together, they certainly intend to. I was able to get screenshots of the text messages going back as far as I could and sent them to myself. I've also packed a bag and headed to my older brother's Oliver's house. As I didn't want Victor to know that I know, I just left a note saying that Oliver had an unexpected emergency and I headed over to help him. Victor just asked me to stay in contact and he loved me. I have an appointment with a lawyer in a few days. Honestly, I feel disgusted. This man knew the whole time that I'm not going to play these kinds of games and he went ahead and decided to mess around and find out. But I don't want to play my hand just yet. Maybe I'm being petty, but I want to catch him as off guard as he caught me off guard. I don't want my baby to be around a man who believes it's okay to make a promise to be loyal and faithful, but decide to break it to chase some tail. What kind of message does that send to a child, especially a girl? I don't care if he wins Father of the Year. He still thinks it's okay to treat the woman he vowed to love, cherish, and honor for the rest of his life like a side piece. Victor has been trying to call and text me asking if I'm okay. Oliver has been texting him back as me because I don't think I can talk to Victor without blowing my top. What do I do now? How do I tell him that not only did he choose Alicia over me, but I don't want my baby to grow up believing this kind of thing is okay? User Black Coffee said, you cool down and don't do anything until you speak to a lawyer. You also research co-parenting because, like it or not, that's the situation for the next 18 years and the parental alienation game will mess up a kid quickly. A deleted user said, you do exactly what your lawyer advises you to do. How custody and child support play out may depend partly on things like who is on the birth certificate and whether your partner is on a putative father's registry if that's a thing where you are. So you need to move ahead with the lawyer as soon as possible, exactly as you are doing. Your lawyer might or might not advise you to be the one who moves out, depending on specifics of your housing situation and your local laws. So I think you should really hold off on making any announcements to your partner if at all possible. If the advice is move back home, tell your partner you're done, and ask him to leave, you want that to be an option on the table. Don't worry about whether or not you can catch him off guard. Petty revenge might be satisfying, but you need to stay focused on what's best for your child. That goes for support, shared custody, and keeping some sort of minimal civil contact with your soon-to-be ex in the long run. Don't go for the low blow now. In the long run, you'll be making what you have to do harder for yourself.